Welcome to the Christopher Peter Review. Please remember to like this episode and subscribe to the Christopher Peter Review channel. There are those in our economy and our overall society that will listen to the voices of the public and try to deliver what they are asking for. And there are others that want to project onto the public what they believe the public should want without any concern of whether there is an alignment between the needs of the consumer and the wants of the producer. We see this not only in our politics, but in the markets as well. Clear as day in the recent spat at Sirius XM, where veteran sports pundits aired their grievances that speak to the shifting dynamics in the sports media market as a whole. Recently, I read that Stephen A. Smith, the lead personality for ESPN, is entering an agreement to host a show on Mad Dog Radio, a channel on Sirius XM. Stephen A. and Chris Mad Dog Russo have very good chemistry on their Wednesday editions of First Take that they now will host shows back to back. As announced on First Take, Stephen A. will be from 3 to 6, Mad Dog follows, and then a rebroadcast of Stephen A., an appealing lineup for many people. Both are polarizing personalities who make good takes and some bad ones, but are entertaining. Now, not everything is a zero-sum game, but when you announce that there is a new show being added to a lineup, that inherently means that either someone retired, did not extend their contract, or was being pushed out. Usually, you see the release of the new schedule to find out who is the odd person out, but nowadays with social media, the cat gets out of the bag so much sooner. We know that Michelle Beadle and Cody Decker are the ones who will give way for Stephen A. to replace them, which they did not take with the normal approach. People sometimes believe that you should take bad news with grace and dignity. They obviously disagree. Beadle let her feelings known about her replacement, and others coming to their defense question the ongoing trend of the media market shifting towards former players voicing their takes and what they deem as boisterous influencers. People will always defend their situation when they feel their livelihood is being threatened. As I have said before, even the most progressive liberal will become a conservative when they are going to be impacted by change. For all these journalists who had the ear of the consumers seeking sports information are now at risk. The worldwide leader in sports shifted away from journalistic content towards debate and punditry. Great sports journalists have been laid off or had to venture out on their own into the podcast or blog world, which is the market that gave rise to the athlete pundit that is taking a greater space in the market. Social media clips of athletes discussing happenings in sports can be more compelling to audiences than a journalist retelling what might have been told to them. From the consumer perspective, there is an authenticity that only an athlete can give on some of these events because of their experience in the environment. We cannot downplay that aspect. They can place the audience in the place of the athlete making the great play or failing in a moment for all the world to see. It provides a human side to a world that can seem superhuman. At the same time, it is very hard to replace the great storytelling that journalists provide that help create magical moments that stand the test of time. For many of the great moments in sports, the actual event is less remembered than how people speak about it. The pictures, the commentary, and the voices calling the games help make these moments stand the test of time. In a way, I do not think you can say one media style is more relevant than another. Is one more trustworthy than the other? I think sports journalists may be loose with the facts at times, but many athletes will retell stories in a manner that makes them look like a victim by distorting the actions and intentions of others. What makes fans flock so hard to the new media is because of some of the theatrics that take place in the modern-day sports media broadcasts that are off-putting. Whether it is Stephen A. at times or Craig Carton, both make reckless takes that are completely nonsensical at times. The typical approach the sport pundit takes is to position themselves as the voice or unquestioned standard on the sport or league. Most experts on any issue always acknowledge that there is more to know. Facts can change because of new ones, and that everything should be questioned. As we have seen with some of these personalities, they believe their word is to be accepted without question because they have been a reporter for decades. But have they been wrong for decades? I do think it is important that people with platforms and audiences put forth content that is factual, backed by evidence and data, not just saying something to appeal to a fan base or advance their biases while passing it off as journalism. We see too many personalities that were once a reporter now a pundit struggle to separate themselves from their biases and the teams that helped make their names. Sometimes, it is just more entertaining and beneficial to listen to an athlete speak from their experience in those similar moments, explaining how their teams prepared them for those moments and how a play is supposed to be executed. While each play may be customized for a team, it is useful to see how a player was taught to operate in it and other options that may exist. I will be the first to admit that I love to watch First Take or Get Up the morning after a Dallas Cowboys loss. It is entertainment that goes on for hours because these networks cover the big-name brands far more than the teams that are actually winning, and it can be nauseating when the big brand teams are winning, making coverage obsessive. Sometimes it is more beneficial to hear from athletes what they thought the Cowboys were thinking when they lost in big moments and why they think it did not go right. Not hearing from anonymous sources, but from people who have played the games and understand how teams teach and coach the plays and moments that define these games. Like seeing these networks belittle the Cowboys for hours may be good for brand awareness and helping keep them in the spotlight, it really does not help show how their hard work could have been put to better use in the games. I cannot believe I am defending the Cowboys, but sometimes the coverage can be much and greatly dismissive.
Audiences will always go to where they are not only entertained, but are informed in a meaningful manner. Watching hours-long criticism of the Cowboys, the Lakers, the Knicks, the Yankees, or Mets may be entertaining to some degree, it does not really make the fans any more knowledgeable about the sport. Many times the local coverage of teams does a better job of not only holding the team accountable, but speaking to what the problem was and what one should have expected to happen. Local reporters can be just as insightful as players at times because they know what good performances are and what their fans expect. The same phenomenon, I believe, is happening in the broader media landscape where people are moving away from the supposed journalists towards people who have more nuanced commentary on the issues and events that are important to them. For instance, you can watch the mainstream media talk about issues in the guise of either attacking or backing Democrats or Republicans. Many times it is better to listen to a person who has expertise in that space or people who will bring on people with experience to discuss what happened, why it happened, and what could have been done better regardless of the ideological biases that exist in the modern-day media. At the end of the day, people want facts, evidence, and data that can help them understand the issues from a granular level. For instance, we see the effect of people not understanding issues regurgitating talking points, but lack any factual relevance or historical context. They do not understand that political parties will always offer some kind of pushback simply because they have to. Sometimes you should be able to acknowledge that a person is doing the right approach or that a decision is the best one amongst many bad options. The idea of the press, whether news or sports, is a lot more enjoyable than the reality of the press. Many believe that the press intends to help society and hold people in power accountable. But the reality is that many of them do not. They serve as attack dogs for the party and candidates they support and provide cover for the wrongdoing by those same. Another reality is that the existence of a biased press is not a new phenomenon. It is something that has existed since the beginning of time. Remember the argument made that if the press was objective, there might not have been an American Revolution, but the press consistently pointed out the problems of the British colonization of early America. Few, if any, questioned the risk of challenging the greatest military at that moment. So, a biased press may not be in the wrong when there are actually facts, evidence, and data telling the story. The problem is over time, the press has been willing to shape narratives not by facts, evidence, and data, but by political bias, personal bias, or potential financial benefit over time. The press at times have been thought to be influenced by their advertisers, owners, and sponsors over time. Why certain stories have been stopped or delayed to a more convenient time. Look at how some journalists talk about allowing the subjects to proofread the reporting. I doubt that is being done in an objective manner. That is why many consumers of news and sports content move away from the traditional media channels in favor of hearing from people in these positions or have experience and expertise in those moments. This is why you want to hear from a soldier about military and wartime issues. Sometimes more than a wartime reporter who holds an anti-war view. No one likes war. But you want to hear what happened rather than what we should think of it.
You bring up a great point. People want to hear what happened rather than being told of how they should think of an event. Because there are so many times where the media has stirred the public into a frenzy over events that were not reported in a factual manner. Oftentimes, the facts that eventually come out show that the media completely created a take knowing there would be a gap between the event and when the facts and evidence are shared with the public. The attempt may create a trust gap that strengthens the pundit's voice, questioning why were the facts not shared immediately, knowing that some facts have to be held out of sight to protect an investigation. The public may not think of that when experiencing the media content. While the media spins their story, the public may take an irrational view and hold it despite facts coming out later that refute the initial reporting. The media never is accountable to the public, but expects every other institution and power broker to be. How convenient. There is an importance to never become a loyal fan of any one source of media and to question what you are hearing regardless of whether you support the event or oppose it. You should really know why you support or oppose any idea.
An informed public is something that can be challenging for either the sport media or national news who position themselves as the standard bearer and voice without reproach. I believe the Socratic approach that media traditionally takes is becoming outdated to a degree because many podcasts and blogs take a more engaging approach to speak with their audience as equals. The influencers understand their audience may not have researched the facts, evidence and data to the degree they did or their team did, but will present the information in a manner where it is a level setting rather than a declaration of how much more they know than the audience. This approach, I think, has drawn more support away from traditional media to alternative media, who make their loyal audience feel intelligent and informed with the "you know this, but let me remind you" approach. It is interesting when you see traditional media try to do this, but it is awkward and unnatural. Especially when they do that in one moment followed by a condescending rant right afterwards. Traditional media personalities are struggling with the reality that the market is moving away from the distribution models that dominated for several decades. Television was a dominant form of media for the transmission of information and promoting products and services. Now, it no longer holds that clout. People are no longer building their schedules around experiencing the news at dinner time or watching late-night commentary at the same level as even a decade ago. Now, they want to listen to a podcast episode when convenient for them. Scroll through social media for quick information. Following up later when more convenient. I wonder how many people experience the content from ESPN, Fox News, CNN and others on social media clips rather than the actual broadcasts. Understanding the future of media and how consumers prefer to receive information is important. For marketers, it may be challenging in losing that control where you could influence the behaviors of the public. For years, you have been telling viewers to watch a story at 8 o'clock and do not miss this special event. And the new media approach is to just post information when they feel like it. The era of coordinated pageantry is over. Consumers just want to engage with the media in their own time and manner.
I find it interesting how many papers each major city used to have in circulation compared to now. There has been a great consolidation the media market brought on by technology changes. Ironically, an industry greatly bolstered by technology when the printing press was invented. Times change and there are many positively impacted and others negatively impacted at the same time. I do not blame sports journalists for being concerned about their ability to remain in an industry that they help shape, or for news reporters to be concerned about their futures. The audience is shifting away from them and their employers may overreaching in trying to follow the directing they think the market is going. Ideally, I believe there can be a good blend between the journalist and the realist. I think it can be equally entertaining to listen to Stephen A. on First Take and then Pat McAfee a couple hours later. But I do think we may want more of the Stephen A. that is on the Stephen A. Smith Show, where he can be really nuisance in his discussion, rather than the First Take one at times, where he can be over the top. The reality is that any media company operating in this market has to have a balanced strategy that goes beyond just leveraging their strength across different platforms. For instance, I think ESPN has not effectively managed the digital market, which has led them to try again. On the other hand, News Corp has built a complementary brand with Fox News and Fox Nation. Having space on both platforms is not simply a matter of replicating content from one source to another, but having content that fits that space. This is why I believed ESPN licensed The Rich Eisen Show for the pending relaunch of ESPN+. They need content that is connected with that type of platform. There needs to be a mix of content specific to the platform along with the rebroadcast. I believe they are learning that now. Other news media companies will need to understand that as their television markets continue to move away from them. A big thank you to all of you in the audience. Your viewership is appreciated and valued. Please follow the Christopher Peter Review on social media and continue to visit www.crcreview.com for new episodes. Thank you once again. Until next time.